Hello. 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 What can you see right now? Are you logged in yet? Yeah. What do you see, Desiree?
Good job, Robert.
Thank you, sir.
I see your screen.
You
But
see.
I see stuff on the right-hand side too. You gotta get rid of that.
Oh, you do?
Robert,
Yeah,
would you move these on over? Okay.
Oh, I think he thinks it's.
I'm not on. Okay.
Is that kind of
I had it and then, oh, you can hear me?
Good morning. Is anyone else here?
The general one.
Hi, Melissa, Brigadier General. We're just trying to figure out some things here internally, so give us a minute.
Okay, yeah, no worries. I just want to make sure I could get dialed in and everyone can hear me. I'll be back.
Thank you.
Morning, Don Williamson. How are you, pal?
Good morning. Doing well.
You look sharp, man. You look great. Brigadier General Coburn, you are on. I appreciate you being on the call and looking forward to your talk today.
Trying to figure out where my mute button is. Good morning. Thanks for
It's all-
having me.
It's all good. Thank you so much for taking time. We so appreciate that. So
Hi, General. This is Don Williamson. I'm so impressed. I'm just looking at your resume. I'm so impressed with your accomplishments, and thank you so much. We're so lucky to have you with us.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind.
Where are you from originally, General?
I think she's probably going to be muted because she's going to be working on a lot of different things.
Right.
Sorry about that. I'm back. We have an inspection going on, so I have like 4 phones running at the same time.
I understand.
You mean you're busy?
We're all busy, right?
Yeah. Really want to get music playing in the background from now on.
Oh, music would be good.
Some good rock and roll or something, you know.
Oh, I was thinking like Air Force music this morning.
Oh, that would have been good. Oh, we thought you had the band coming.
Yes, exactly. I was giving a brief yesterday and my cat decided to play with her ping pong ball thing. And in the middle of the brief, someone said, "Someone's not on mute. There's background noise." And it was my cat playing with the ball all around. And I couldn't like just leave the brief. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, that happens from time to time, right?
Right?
Yeah. We were on with Captain Hembry Bay the other day, and one of the kids came in, I believe it was. So it happens.
Right. Speaking of which, my son is gonna come in at like 10. I probably should text him and be like, "I'll be in the middle of a brief. Please don't bust in like, 'Hi, Mom.'"
Oh no, we'd love that. That would be great.
I don't know if he would though.
Well,
Although he's actually, so he's a cadet right now. He's a cadet at Virginia Tech. So
Wow.
yeah.
How many children do you have?
I have two. My son is 19 and my daughter is 16.
Nice.
Yeah, they keep me busy.
And you live here in Southern California?
I do. We live in Temecula.
Very close.
Mm-hmm.
So we just got a couple more minutes and we'll be getting things dialed in here.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning. How are you? Good to see you, Mayor. Thank you so much for jumping on the call for us.
Good to see you.
We'll be starting again in about 30 seconds to 40
pleasure.
seconds. I'll give some updates on things and we'll get the official meeting going. Linda, if it's not already recording, it is recording, so thank you.
All right.
Let me get rid of anything that says score on her computer.
Good morning. Pete with COE. I've got more gray hair than last time. What's that about? Good morning. Hey, Jamil.
Hey, at least you got hair.
Yeah. Come on now.
Hey, Bobby, thanks for including me in this.
Got it, thanks. What was that?
I said thank you for including me this morning.
My pleasure. Since this is your partner, you're the one that helped me secure her to be on this call. I thought you should be on it. So how you feeling, my friend?
Hanging in there. You know, I go in on July 9th in 2 weeks. For 19 days, I'm going to be in the hospital for my transplant. So we'll talk about that later on one-on-one.
Well, I just want you to know all the people that are going to be on this call, we're going to be a community prayer for you for complete healing on this with all the chemo and everything you're going through.
Thank you.
You fought it before and you're going to win it this time. And we believe there's a bigger power and there's a purpose of what you're going through, but God bless you, man. So
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bobby.
You bet. You bet. So I am so honored to be able to call the meeting to order right now. My name is Bobby Spiegel. I'm the president, CEO for the Corona Chamber of Commerce. I would like to just share a couple of things with you. Today we have a sponsor. Every week we have a different sponsor, and this sponsor this week is Vulcan Materials Company. They're one of our premier partners in the business community. And if you are interested in becoming a sponsor, let us know. You can connect with me at bobby@mychamber.org. Also, we have a chat room, and you'll see on the screen the slide that shows where you can go in and post your chat. For all the speakers that are on today, don't worry about looking at the chat room. That is what Linda will do here at the Chamber. Linda Richards, one of the great professionals that I get to work with on a daily basis here. She will be asking the different questions as our chairman of the board runs the meeting. As soon as our speakers are done speaking, he will ask Linda for any questions. She'll read those questions and those speakers will answer at the time of their allotted space on this meeting, on this call. As usual, what we try to do is put 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. So we got a full agenda and we just want to thank you all for being here. If I could just ask that all of you mute yourself. It looks like most of you have, and I really am happy over that. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to right now introduce our chairman of the board, who had a theme. He founded the History Association, and he has a theme this year of making history. Little did we know how much history he was going to be making. Please welcome our chairman of the board, Don Williamson. Donnie.
Hey, thank you very much, Bobby. I'll tell you what, if my if our slogan this year, "Make History," is responsible for this, I apologize, and I should be thrown overboard, man, because who would have reckoned what 2020 was going to be? But you know, here we are, and the bad times, the tough times, make the good times seem even better. So that's where we're at as we're going through some trying times. And the Chamber of Commerce is here for you every day to help you with any problems you have with your business as you try to work through these things. That's what we're here for today, is to cover some of the things, some of the updates that are facing us and that are available to you, our members. So having said that, to start off, one of the most important missions that we have and that we do here at the Corona Chamber of Commerce is our Legislative Action Committee, and that is to let you know and keep you informed of what's going on at every level of government. So our first speaker is going to give us a brief update on some of what's going on in our various legislatures, and I'd like to introduce from the Occidental Communications Group, Jeff Gibson.
Thank you, Don. So the legislature has been working for the last several weeks now with the governor. The budget, as we discussed last week, was passed. This week, the major news is going to be the ballot initiatives that are going to be on the ballot. This morning, the split roll initiative that had initially qualified which would remove most commercial properties and many of the apartment complexes in Corona from Prop 13 protections, was withdrawn because they're negotiating a different tax with the governor. I would expect that today being the deadline for ballot measures to be withdrawn. There's another initiative that very likely would be withdrawn dealing with the California Association of Realtors, and which was going to also change property tax assessments for commercial properties. So you're going to see a lot of movement in that over the next 2 to 3 days. The legislature is actually petitioning the state administration, the Secretary of State, to give them some extra time. So you can imagine the response from most government agencies. If you were asked for additional time in paying your taxes, the legislature is, and this is the governor's negotiation, is asking for a little bit of deference, so that the constitutional deadline of June 25th to qualify for the ballot for November for statewide initiatives, that's not local initiatives, that filing closes August 7th. So we have quite a lot of election news that's going to be coming up over the next several months that has nothing to do with politics. It literally has to do with your pocketbook. So if any split roll that has been proposed to date, including the ones that the governor is negotiating, are approved by voters, then you will have a 100% increase in commercial property taxes before the end of the next decade, and then with a doubling every 5 years after that. So that's going to have a huge impact on whether you rent or own or speculate in property. So we're going to keep very close track of that. Another bill that we're looking at is SB 1410. We're going to be bringing that for likely opposition, depending upon whether the author takes amendments or not. It's been deemed by the State Senate Majority Caucus to be a priority for them. It's part of the administration's recovery package. It allows residential renters to not pay rent until well past the end of the year, or actually about 90 days after the governor releases his emergency orders. So if the governor were to release an emergency order, anyone affected by that order who is renting a residential property would be allowed to not pay rent. They would not face eviction. They would not have to pay back rent. And the landlords would be able to apply to the state for a tax credit that would begin in 2024. So this is obviously something that's never happened before in the state of California. The state of California, as part of this budget package, eliminated all ongoing tax credits. So if you purchased equipment on the idea that you were going to get a multi-year tax credit, that tax credit has now been suspended by the current budget. So there's a lot of different things going on that are very likely going to affect employers, and we're keeping very close track of that. So I'm here for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Jeff. Linda, do we have any questions for Jeff?
No questions at this time.
Jeff,
All right.
thank you very much. That's food for thought, I'll tell you. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the information and for being here today. At this time now, we would like to turn it over to a man who has a elected position that I'm sure he didn't realize was going to be virtually a full-time job serving us. And I would like to turn it over to Mayor Jim Steiner.
Hey, Don, thank you. Good morning, everybody. As shared, the Riverside County COVID-19 Business Assistant Grant Program will come up for the second round of applications on June 29th. The city will be promoting this, and we ask that you share this with your networks as well. And as thought and now evidenced by the data coming in, Corona has fared better than most communities with an unemployment rate 2.6% below the county average, according to the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics. Recent data shows stronger than expected job growth in the state, and we're hopeful next month's data will reflect this at the local level. Many of those local businesses who made layoffs and furloughs have started the rehiring process, so that's a good thing. As a reminder, there are numerous resources available at little to no cost for those businesses who may need consulting when restructuring their business. And please feel free to contact myself or Ryan Cortez if we can provide further information for you. And I know everybody's getting excited about reopening and trying to get back to normal. They're just going to remind everybody that there's still the virus out there. So just be careful and be respectful of others, just so we don't have any other negative consequences that slow the progress down for everybody. And then I just wanted to remind everybody that our cannabis study session is today at 3:30 in the city council chambers. The public is welcome, or you can view it on live stream. And with that, I'll turn it over to our emergency services coordinator, Gina Moran-McGough.
Hear me okay?
There you go, Gina.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. First of all, we've been very busy in the emergency management world, as you can imagine. Right now, our primary focus has been and continues to be to coordinate with our county emergency operations center. For those that may not be aware, the emergency operations center is a location where department heads and county department heads come together to help mitigate the existing emergency. So the County Emergency Operations Center, along with our local city emergency operations center, is still activated at Emergency Watch. We have daily communications with our county emergency management partners. We are, as Mayor Steiner had mentioned, about COVID still being active, we are monitoring closely the case numbers and how that's affecting our hospitals. As of now, we have 315 individuals currently hospitalized throughout the county with COVID. Our concern being the uptick of the number of individuals that are in ICU, and the availability of ICU beds. So that's something that we work with the county very closely to monitor. We as a city are still staffing our information line to help our community members and business owners with any types of questions they may have. We are currently working to report damages from COVID recovery, just as Ryan Cortez and Bobby with the chamber are working closely with our business partners to try to obtain damage dollar amounts. We're doing the same as the city. What we are running into are other situations now that are also impeding or interfering with our financial status, such as the public demonstrations. The county right now is working with the local government, the local cities, trying to get dollar amounts of damage that may have been caused. And when I say damage, it could be just as much as staffing our PD or fire during some of these events. So along with working with the recovery process for COVID, as we're still in that, and being impacted by the financial burden, we are encountering these other situations as well. So with these challenges of COVID, now that we enter fire season, as emergency management, we're looking at how this is going to affect our actions, our actual during a fire, such as evacuations and sheltering. So right now, a big project for me personally is working with our local fire and PD and our county counterparts, along with Red Cross and our school district, as to how this is going to happen. Usually during evacuation, it's, we designate a school facility for the most part and send individuals there. But now with COVID, you have another whole barrier with having to evaluate individuals before allowing them into shelter. So COVID has been quite challenging in the emergency management world for all of us. And as we enter fire season, I ask to keep those things in mind and prepare and be ready to evacuate if need be, because some of these actions may take a little bit longer than we're normally used to. Other with that, our 911 call volume is still under the normal call volume, which is good. That's a positive. And if I'm available for any type of questions, or if a business wants to help give information to their employees about emergency preparedness or discussions relative to that, preparing for fire season, not just COVID, please reach out to me. I'm available anytime. And I would gladly try to spread the word on preparedness and how we can help.
Thank you so much, Gina. Dawn?
Linda, do we have any questions for any of the Corona team?
No questions at this time.
Okay, well then, Mayor Steiner, Ms. Moran-McGough, thank you so much for being here today and for that information. Truly appreciate it.
Thanks.
It's always a pleasure to turn the time over to our county supervisor, someone who's been in touch with our city and our business community here. And I would like to turn it over to our supervisor, Karen Spiegel.
Well, good morning. This is a good morning. We are starting looking at next year. There's good and bad coming in. We were able to approve our budget for the county yesterday. $6.5 billion budget. Yes, it's a very large budget. But we also have some grave concerns that I need to pass on, and that is that we have the unknown of what the state's going to do to our budget, how much they're going to give us in realignment, how much they're going to withhold. So we have a secondary to fully adopt the budget in September. So we approved it. This is unusual, but then again, the pandemic has done a lot of unusual things that we're doing. So we approved it yesterday. We will adopt it in September after we find out all the consequences of what's been going on. We also are having a tremendous surge with record-breaking, far higher than it was in March. And so we really need everybody to become partners in this. And the most important thing is to wear your mask, keep your distance. It is really spreading very fast. And secondly, get tested. We definitely need people who are not symptomatic to be tested, as well as those that have symptoms. And the reason why is we're down to only testing those with symptoms. And what that does is it's increasing our numbers. And we know that there are many more people who don't have symptoms, who aren't positive. And we need you to test just as much, because we need to bring our numbers down. There's many components that are dependent on this number. And one of them is the fact of us being on the watch list with the state. And that means at any time in 14 days, if we don't get our numbers down, the governor can come in. And we don't want the circumstances that he will be coming in and the consequences. And they're talking already back about holding back and even pushing our closures. We don't want that to happen, so we need everybody to step up and be a part of this, because we've come so far. And I know, and you know, that the businesses, the residents just don't want to take steps backwards. So let's kind of pause for a second where we're at and take some time for tests, wear your mask, and hopefully we can move on positively. Now, on the positive side, I've mentioned to you over the last couple of weeks about some of the grants that are coming forward. The nonprofit grant will be opening from July 1st to July 31st. And round 2 of the business grants, Rob Moran's on the call, and I'm going to have Rob explain that a little more in detail. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Supervisor, and good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the chamber. Thanks for having me. So yeah, we're going to start round 2 on Monday, June 29th at 9 o'clock in the morning. As some of you remember, the Board of Supervisors allocated approximately $45 million for business grants. So we closed round 1 last Friday on the 19th, and we're pushing out just over $7.3 million in that round. And so what we're doing in round 2 is we're going to approach it a little bit differently. Rather than have it open for a couple of weeks, we're going to have it open from the 29th through basically the end of August. And it will be open on a first come, first served basis. What we've done in terms of the eligibility criteria, most of them are the same going forward, but we've made a couple of key changes. One being that, excuse me, sole proprietors are eligible and independent contractors. They were eligible in round 1, but we had the requirement of ownership plus 1 employee. So now it's just the owners are eligible. So that will, I think, broaden the pool of eligible businesses significantly. And then secondly, if a business has received an SBA disaster loan, the EIDL that many of you are familiar with, they're also eligible. And so those are a couple of the key criteria. We'll update the application, reflect that. We're still going to ask for a business license, financial statements. And one thing I wanted to point out too, that this question's come up, what if I don't have a current business license because I just haven't been able to get it updated? You certainly can submit your last year's business license, for example. You can also, I think, probably renew them online, but if for some reason you've just been unable to do that, we'll work with you. So those are the primary changes, and certainly if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to help you along the way. Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you, Karen and Mr. Moran. Linda, at this time, do we have any questions for either Supervisor Spiegel or Mr. Moran?
Yes. Can he explain the EIDL eligibility for new program?
Actually, Rob will explain that one.
Yes, and basically, if you received the EIDL, either the advance or the loan, then you are eligible to apply. Before, if you had received the PPP or the EIDL, that was a disqualifying criteria, but if you receive the EIDL, you're good to go.
Thank you. Linda?
No additional questions. Oh, wait, one moment, please. Yeah, we have another question. California State is submitting a plan to spend $800 million on homelessness. Does the region get any of these funds? That's from Leah Peterson.
Well, we're hoping that we do. But as I said, so much dependent on where we are at with following the rules. And that's kind of in short what the governor's doing. But we're keeping our eyes very carefully on that piece with the homeless.
Thank you.
And we have another question about the PPP and the loans, the grants.
I'll be happy to answer that one. Yes, we are still maintaining that that restriction on it. Primarily, the PPP was established as a forgivable loan. We realized that it worked differently for different folks along the way. We may take a look at that a little bit down the road, but for now, that is still a restriction.
Thank you. Karen, sorry, Linda?
We have no additional questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Supervisor Spiegel and Mr. Moran. We truly appreciate it. As Supervisor Spiegel mentioned, the numbers are going back up on the COVID, and it's a worrisome time. It hasn't gone away, and consequently, you know, we're all pretty tired of it. We're tired of putting on masks and whatnot, but it's really for the betterment of everyone, the most vulnerable, which I count myself as. I'm in the category of someone who's at risk. And with that in mind, there's a pledge that we're asking for businesses to join in on. The Corona Chamber and the Riverside County Economic Recovery Task Force have created the Safer Together, Greater Together pledge. It's for businesses to share their commitment to safety. The pledge is a cohesive message to help residents and visitors feel secure that hotels, restaurants, attractions, and retail shops are upholding the latest COVID-19 safety standards established by the state of California and by the county of Riverside. The Chamber's goal through this program is to keep Corona a healthy, positive, and inclusive destination for all travelers, employees, and residences. And as you can see on the sign on your computer there, visit that site, LY pledge taken to fill out the pledge. And if you have need more information, contact Linda Richards at that number below. So that's a message that we hope you guys will follow through with. Moving on, our ELR USO project that we've talked about in recent weeks from our Executive Leadership Roundtable. Today, from the current class, from Level Advisors, I'd like to introduce to you Ann St.Germain, who's going to give us an update.
Good morning. Hey, Don, thank you for the gratuitous shout out there, Level Advisors. Thank you. Yeah, so I am a current member of the Executive Leadership Roundtable. And if you all don't know what it is, it's a very cool program for leaders in the community. It's something definitely worth checking out if you're interested in getting involved or creating new connections in Riverside County. So part of the class is that you don't have to, you are encouraged. We get to do a project. And each class does a project that it has a lasting benefit, if you will, for the community. And as we went through, I think it was called Military Day, we were toured around the March Air Reserve Base, and we got to go into the USO Deployment Center. The Deployment Center basically sees about 90,000 plus troops a year through this room. Imagine your elementary school lunchroom, if you will. It's something similar to that with chairs and whatnot. And sometimes our troops are there for several days, either waiting to be deployed or waiting to move around or having come home from, a deployment overseas. So as we toured this, we were, you could say, underwhelmed to say the least, where we saw the kitchen facilities and it was all basically just dry storage because they didn't have the capacity they didn't have the monies nor the capacity at that moment for refrigeration. So we were, as a group, really struck by how little we were giving our service members when they were waiting in these rooms to either be deployed or come home. So because of their limitations, they were essentially serving everybody peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And as a group, we thought we could do better. So our project was birthed out of that tour where we decided that we wanted to raise monies for this USO program. Initially, we wanted to just provide them with the capacity to have refrigeration there. Of course, when we went to visit the not-for-profit, the need revealed itself to be much greater. So we committed to raise as much money as we possibly could for the USO Deployment Center, which include a critical kitchen expansion, so that they can provide hot food options, something more than the PB&J that they were receiving at the moment. And from there, we were hoping to additionally raise monies to provide Wi-Fi for when they're sitting around in there for days and days. It gets a little boring, and also gives them the capacity to connect with their spouse and their children. We also committed to help fund the best that we could this program that was essentially the soldiers being able to record and read a book that they could play then back to their children while they were gone, so the children could continue to hear their voices. So some really, really neat elements that the USO offers, and we continue to raise funds. To date, we've raised a little over $30,000, but the need is essentially way still there. And so please, if you feel a tug in your heart or are looking to spend some money because you've got too much and you need a charitable contribution, you can do that at givebigcorona.com. And it is you will be donating to a 501c3. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Again, we really do owe them more than just a PB&J.
Thank you very much for being here today, Ms. St.Germain, or Ann as I call you. Linda, do we have any questions for Ann?
Oh, just some appreciation about supporting the base.
Okay, and again, thank you very much for being here and bringing up this great project. And I'd like to just spend just a couple seconds talking about the Executive Leader Roundtable. And this is the kind of projects that we do. We've done so many good things in our community as the offshoot of this wonderful program. And we've talked about, and hopefully you're aware of the Executive Leadership Roundtable. We visit military bases. We go through all the government buildings, healthcare facilities. I've lived here for 60 years, and I'll tell you what, when I went through it, I learned. And I'm an involved person. There was so much that I learned that you can't get anywhere else. And this is just a wonderful opportunity for you to expand your horizons and learn how things truly work. And then on top of that, you get to do a project that will have a lasting benefit. So anyway, check out our website for that. And we're taking applications now for that. So there's other people that, if you know someone who's been on it, I think ask them what their experience was and how they felt about it. So please consider joining the next 2021-22 Executive Leadership Roundtable. Actually, it's 2021, not 21-22. Okay, at this time, I am honored to be able to introduce our feature speaker. And I just want to read a little bit about Brigadier General Melissa Coburn, who is our speaker today. She's the commander of the 452nd Air Mobility Wing, Air Force Reserve Base Command, March Air Force Reserve Base. As the commander of the Air Force Reserve, largest wing with more than 4,000 personnel, 9 C-17As, and 14 KC-135R, she directs the support of worldwide airlift and air refueling operations. She is also responsible for the daily operations out at the March Air Reserve Base. She was commissioned through the Air Force Academy in 1992 and served 11 years on active duty. Her previous assignments include 452nd Operations Group Commander, March Air Reserve Base and Senior Executive Officer to the Chief of the Air Force Reserve Commander, Air Force Reserve Command. She has more than 5,400 flying hours and 279 combat flying hours in support of operations in Hungary, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Anytime I have a chance to talk to an exceptional individual who's made a choice to serve our country, my heart just fills with gratitude. And to me, General Coburn's an American hero, and it's just a pleasure for me to introduce at this time to you, Brigadier General Melissa Coburn.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction, sir. And Mayor, Supervisor Spiegel, Bobby, thank you guys for having me this morning. I really appreciate the invitation. I was asked to kind of give you just a brief update about what's going on at March. I teed up our normal mission brief for you guys. And then at the end of it, I'm just going to talk a little bit about current operations, because much like everyone else, we are dealing with the impacts of COVID-19 on the base as well. So just give you a little insight as to what we're doing. We did have a video. I don't know if it was able to be teed up.
Unfortunately, it is not able to be done.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Again, this is my first Zoom meeting. I've done Teams and GoToMeeting, and so this is my first Zoom. So we're all learning new technology in the midst of all of this as well. Okay, well then, I can't see my slides. Let me flip my screen. Okay, perfect. That's our intro slide. Next slide, please. All right, so here's what we're gonna cover. I won't bore you guys too much with the history. Probably most of you all, it sounds like a lot of you have been able to come out to the base at one time or another. Most of you all probably know the history, but we're pretty proud of it, so I'll mention a couple highlights. talk a little bit about the 452nd Air Mobility Wing. So that's my wing that resides on the base, but we have a lot of partner units. So I'm going to explain our partner units and kind of get into a little bit of what they've got going on lately as well. And then talk certainly about our community support, because we have a lot of that. I'm very, very grateful. And then also mention some of our strategic impact, specifically how we support the Secretary of Defense's National Defense Strategy. And then, like I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit about our current operations going on. Next slide, please. So we started out back in 1917, so over 100 years ago now, as Alessandro Flying Training Field. And back then the Air Force was actually part of the Army. We were the Army Air Corps. Unfortunately, the Chief of Staff of the Army's son was killed in a training accident, Lieutenant March, and that's how we became known as March Field at the time. When we became the Air Force, when we separated from the Army, we became known as March Air Force Base. And then back in the early 1990s, when they decided to realign the base, they took the active duty part away. We became March Air Reserve Base, but March Air Force Base, March Air Reserve Base, kind of used interchangeably. We do actually have a whole slew of very famous folks that have been commanders at one time or another at the base. And you can see on the slide, you recognize some of the names on the left. And then you can also see that one of the most notable commanders is Lieutenant Colonel at the time when he was the commander at March, Henry Hap Arnold. He is to date the only 5-star general that we have in the Air Force. So we're pretty proud of that heritage that he was the commander of the base. Next slide, please. So this is the current leadership. I am the 452nd Air Mobility Wing Commander and also the Installation Commander, so over the entire March Air Reserve Base. My vice, Colonel William Martin in the center there, is actually an active duty 06, so he's an active duty colonel. They were kind enough to lend him to us for a couple years. He's been my vice since last summer. And traditionally, the leadership at the base is full-time commander, and then the vice commander is a part-time citizen airman. So I've been very lucky to have him there full-time. We're a really busy base. We're a really big base with a big mission. So it's nice to have the backup. And then on the far right, you can see my command chief, Chief Master Sergeant Ortiz. He is also now full-time. That just happened about a month ago. And again, the normal structure is that that position would be part-time. He handles all of the enlisted matters. So anything that that has to do with any of the enlisted troops at the field or at the base, he's in charge of all of those kinds of things. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is us, the 452nd Air Mobility Wing. On the left, you can see our KC-135s. We actually have 14 KC-135s. Probably most of you all are familiar with the mission of the KC-135 as being the big gas station in the sky, if you will. They refuel all of the aircraft that we have in the Air Force inventory. Probably the mission that we're most proud of with the KC-135 is that they do support, as you can see, 2 lines of 24/7, 365 alert. And that is partially in support of our nuclear mission, nuclear deterrence mission, and also partly in support of Homeland Defense. On the right-hand side is the C-17 Globemaster. So that's my airplane. That's actually the airplane that I fly. I'm a huge fan of it. It's a strategic airlift, flies worldwide, flies troops, supplies, anything, equipment, vehicles, anything you need to get anywhere in the world. You can load it up on a C-17 and you can usually get it pretty much into any field. That airplane can land fully loaded on a 3,000-foot runway if it needs to, and in the dirt. So it goes a lot of places, does a lot of things. It's also the air medical evacuation mission that we have on the base. Well, you can do air medical evacuation on either airplane, believe it or not. The C-17 is just built inside. It's built to accommodate that mission pretty robustly. In the center, we just talked about the Joint Deployment Center. That's one of our missions on the base that we're pretty proud of. The Joint Deployment Center was built in 2017. And through that deployment center, we process all of the Marines who deploy in and out of the 1MEF, so the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force down at Camp Pendleton. And we also are responsible to transit all of the soldiers who come out to train at Fort Irwin at the National Training Center. So on average, we process about 110,000 members through the base every year in support of other services so they can get their deployments done. Next slide, please. Okay, so at March, like I said, 452nd Air Mobility Wing, my wing, is not the only show in town. I'll start on the left, the 163rd Attack Wing. Those are the MQ-9s. They have stood down for just a temporary stand down of their combat mission. And they actually have stood up a schoolhouse and have been accomplishing a lot of training on the base. You're probably most familiar with them here in California as in more of their domestic role that they have. So I've been pretty amazed in the 3 years that I've been here. They've been called out several times in support of the California wildfires. The governor can order them out, and then they work directly with CAL FIRE and provide live feed, especially through the night. So as wildfires are burning and normal ground operations have to retreat, they can actually fly through the night and map the fires and provide live feed to CAL FIRE about where the fire has moved. And it helps the firefighters determine where they need to go the next morning. They've also done a couple missions since I've been here. There were a couple lost hikers that they've been able to go out, and again, they just survey the land and report back to law enforcement agencies to be able to perform search and rescue missions. Pretty incredible capability, actually. And in the center, the Air and Marine Operations Center, I don't know if maybe a couple of you guys, we offer tours there every once in a while. I go on every tour that I can because I find their mission just absolutely intriguing. You can see their operations center, their floor there is just a constant monitoring of all air and marine operations across the nation. And they have specifically been trained, and they work directly with law enforcement to kind of just survey the movement of air and marine traffic. And then if they notice anything out of the ordinary, that's when they contact law enforcement entity directly, and they go and investigate the movement of whatever air or ship that they've noticed on the screen. On the right-hand side, the 144th Fighter Wing is actually a detachment. So they are F-16s, again, that sit 24/7, 365. They sit alert at March and provide us homeland defense. They are strictly there for homeland defense mission. These are also the folks, unfortunately, that lost an airplane last year. I'm sure probably everybody on the line heard about that. But they have done a great job. No injuries. That pilot is actually back flying. It was a best case scenario of a terrible accident. And they actually have a major inspection coming up next month. So they're very busy training and flying. You probably hear them taking off every once in a while. It's a pretty awesome capability. Next slide, please. All right, let's talk a little bit about our community relationships. Again, I've been in the Air Force for 28 years now, and I've been to a couple bases, and I just am amazed every day at the amount of support that we get from the local community. Our citizen airmen on the base, so most of my base itself, and even specifically to my wing, are folks who actually work and live in the surrounding communities. On a normal day, so pre-COVID-19 ops, we have about 8,000 people that come to the base for work. Right now, we're in telework posture, and we don't have folks coming into the offices regularly. But usually, when things are normal, we have about 8,000 people that come to the base. Many of those folks are part-timers that come to the base and do their reserve duty on the base and then go back out, and they're either airline pilots or teachers, doctors, nurses. They do all kinds of things in the local community. It's pretty amazing. I have a hard enough time keeping track of my one job. I can't imagine some of the folks that have two completely different professions. And it's actually pretty amazing to watch someone who is a nurse on the outside, maybe, and then comes into the base and does aircraft maintenance. So it's a pretty unique capability that we have in the Air Force Reserve. I'm very, very proud of our citizen airmen. Next slide, please. All right, so to talk a little bit about our strategic impact. So the National Defense Strategy is how the Secretary of Defense puts in writing and kind of lets us know about his priorities and kind of where the Air Force needs to fill in for what his priorities are. And if you look on the left, the #1 Department of Defense objective is actually to provide for homeland defense. I've mentioned a couple of different missions that we have. So both the KC-135s and our F-16s on base support that directly. So they support the #1 DoD objective directly. The #2 DoD objective is providing for the Joint Force. And the way we say that we provide to the Joint Force, obviously we talked about the Deployment Center where we support Marines and Army troops. But we also are identified as a Southern California airlift hub. So what that means is anytime, and it expands even beyond the Department of Defense, but anytime the nation needs airlift in and out of this whole southwestern region of the United States, March is identified as the base to be able to do that. And then our #1 capability investment, so the #1 priority for the Secretary of Defense to spend money on is in the nuclear enterprise. And we support that with our KC-135s on the base. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to talk a little bit about our current operations, and then I'll open it up for questions because some of y'all may have heard some weird rumors or maybe think we're doing this or something else on the base. I'm always amazed at even the questions I get from my own airmen about what they think is going on at the base. So we started with COVID-19 back in January, believe it or not. I'm sure most of you all saw on the news that we were actually picked to be the reception point for the first 200 evacuees of Department of State workers and families. And they came and set up operations on March. It was not a Department of Defense led mission. So it was very interesting how the whole thing came about. They pretty much called me at 16:30, got a phone call directly from the Pentagon. And they said, General Coburn, in about 13 hours, you're going to be receiving about 200 evacuees from China. We need them to stay on your base because we don't know if they've been exposed to this new virus. Somebody from U.S. State Department and Health and Human Services will make contact with you through the night. Good luck. And so we kind of mobilized our leadership team on the base and started reaching out to anybody that we knew, really anybody that we could. And that included many, many folks in Riverside County because we don't have a hospital or any kind of military treatment facility of any kind on the base. So we relied very heavily on Riverside County resources to get us through that and really be the interface between us and USAID, who was the lead for the actual operation through Health and Human Services. Huge success. I think everybody who came was just phenomenal about working as a team and making sure that these folks were safe. We did end up getting a federal quarantine established, so then we had U.S. Marshal support on the base. Luckily, all 200 of those folks tested negative on their way out, and they were able to be reintegrated into the communities where they came from all across the United States. And then we all thought that was that, and we were done with COVID-19. And unfortunately, that was not the case for any of us. So in March, beginning of March, is when we really started paying very close attention to certainly the nation's directives, and then Governor Newsom's directives, and then local and county. And we quickly fell into lockstep with everything as far as shutting down. We had some added challenges because the Department of Defense is not real great about telework. So we had to really figure out how we get people up and running and issuing laptops quickly on their way out the door. We have been in a mission essential telework posture since mid-March. And I just extended that into July because unfortunately for me, well, fortunately, unfortunately, good and bad is all upside down this year. But I cannot just open up my base. The impacts of the local community I have to wait and see, you know, as my folks go out into the community and go to restaurants, go to bars, hang out at wherever on Saturday night and come back to the base. I have to wait and see the impact to the base and our mission, because obviously I have a no fail mission and I need to keep my alert force secure and safe. So it's been a constant reevaluation of what we've got going on. Can't say it hasn't been tedious. It's been pretty tedious and stressful, but again, we have great support from the community, and we'll get there. We have had some sick airmen. We do have a few new ones this week, unfortunately. So we always are just constantly keeping tabs on that. And again, without a medical facility on the base, we get great support from the surrounding communities and in the hospitals. Our UEI, so that's just kind of what we were offline before the meeting started, discussing. It's a major inspection. It happens every 3 years, and we were due for ours last week. And initially they said, nope, we're just going to turn the inspection off and not come out, and we'll postpone it to a later date. And by doing that, much like everything else that we all experience, if you keep putting everything off to the right, it crunches your entire schedule and it isn't good for anyone, because we have other inspections coming up in next year and the year after, and deployments coming up. And so I asked for them to perform the inspection virtually. They did that. I haven't taken the out brief yet, so wish us luck. I should be getting some kind of feedback this afternoon about it. Our tenant domestic ops, we kind of referenced that with the MQ-9s and the upcoming wildfire season. Always on standby, always ready to help. And I will also just throw out there, in the interest of current operations, that just yesterday afternoon, I got pinged by the emergency management office on base for the earthquake in Mexico. So anytime there are search and rescue teams that are needed to come out, you know, LA area has a lot of FEMA teams and search and rescue teams. We tend to at least provide the airfield where they can fly in and out of. And sometimes we are able even to fly the C-17s in support of those teams. So I got pinged yesterday that, hey, just be on standby. We don't know what we need yet, but we'll let you know. And ongoing missions, again, it's been quite a challenge in today's environment to continue our normal alert operations. The C-17s are still flying worldwide. And I had an opportunity to go out and fly a mission 2 weeks ago now in the Pacific, because I wanted to kind of get out and see what was going on, how other airfields were dealing with this whole thing and what the restrictions were. And it was very obvious to me that there are definitely challenges, not only here in the United States. There are challenges everywhere with how we're going to maintain normal life. Next slide, please. Okay, I think that pretty much sums it up of everything I wanted to talk about, but I will entertain questions if anybody has any.
General, thank you so much for that interesting presentation.
Thank you, sir.
We so appreciate you being here. Linda, do we have any questions for General Coburn?
Yes. What can Corona community do to further support the base?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, you guys do so much already. Like, you know, you just mentioned the whole making my deployment center better, because the poor soldiers and Marines were getting peanut butter and jelly. That has been a huge help. Unfortunately, with COVID-19 and the USO operations, we've had to kind of tweak what they, you know, it used to be really nice to have the USO volunteers be able to come in and interface directly with the troops. We've scaled that back, obviously. I mean, again, I want to thank you for the healthcare support that you guys have provided. yeah, you guys do a lot for us already. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that we need, but I appreciate the ask.
Ma'am, it's Jamil. Can I comment on that real quick, please?
Sure.
Bobby Spiegel is part of your honorary commanders group, so he's very engaged already on the base. He knows what's going on, and I know a lot of the Corona folks come and do the picnic. And then when we're doing the air shows, a lot of the Corona folks step up and provide financial support and folks to help with volunteer services, and they're always available. So Corona, even though they have their own base, they are very, very actively engaged along with Riverside and Moreno Valley in supporting March. So we're proud of our Corona partnership.
Definitely.
Thank you. Linda, is there any other questions?
We don't have any other questions at this time.
Okay. Again, General, I know you're very busy, and thank you so very much for taking the time to spend with us today. We can't thank you enough. And thank you for your service to our country.
You're very welcome, sir. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, in conclusion, thank you to all our speakers. And at this time, give us another couple minutes. Before Bobby and I start doing some announcements, I just want to thank Vulcan personally for supporting this call this morning. Jim Gore from Vulcan is in our board of directors, and they've been active participants for many years, and I just want to thank Vulcan for sponsoring us today. Bobby, should we start rolling?
Absolutely. Give us about 3 minutes and we'll be done with everything, guys. But we just want to let you know that some of you that are plugged on today may not be a member yet of the Corona Chamber. Robert Yanez will absolutely be able to assist you in understanding the additional support and the things that we offer. So we encourage you to be, at least to ask Robert for some suggestions and recommendations, and we'll be able to welcome you to our chamber family. Donnie?
Thank you. We have a Coffee with an Entrepreneur coming up on July the 13th. This is an intimate little gathering. It's going to be on Zoom now, where you get to hear someone who has working on their business and their experiences and tackling obstacles and the status of where they're going as they climb to success. It's a very interesting meeting, and it'll be on July 13th. Be sure to register so we can be prepared for your attendance. And I already thanked the today's sponsor, and I just want to, as Bobby said, encourage anyone else who is interested to please let Bobby know that they're interested. But again, thanks to Vulcan and their active participation over the many years with the Corona Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. The next slide that will pop up is, again, Donnie shared it earlier, but this is something that we're asking everyone to take the pledge. We'll even have individuals take the pledge. What we're looking for is businesses to show the support that we want to make sure Corona remains safe. And in a nutshell, we want to make sure that we can nip this whole thing in the bud. We shared the name of the coronavirus with our town of Corona, but we will find the solutions and we will be able to make things better, and we're safer together, greater together. The next slide is our GMC Good Morning Corona. This is going to be our State of the City address with our mayor, and we're very excited about that. Last week, we had a tremendous meeting with all 5 council members, and he's going to hone in on a couple additional things. And we'll also be recognizing and honoring our young professionals that day. So it's going to be very, very full agenda, a lot of excitement. We're going to ask that you register as early as possible. The bit.ly is on that slide. And again, that is Friday, July 17th. Our next slide is the golf tournament coming up on August 5th. These are the sponsors so far. We do have room, and we'll add another complete slide if needed. So if you are looking at possibly wanting to sponsor, come in with a foursome, maybe do the, host one of the larger things of a breakfast or part of the dinner, we'd love for you to consider that. So please go ahead and consider that. We have a new program with this. We're selling individual raffle tickets or opportunity tickets. 1 ticket for $20, 6 for $100, and 40 for $500. What we're doing is for every $500 collected, we're inviting one of the frontline people from this most recent of the COVID. So it could be healthcare, it could be first responders. It is all the people that are putting their life on the line, helping us to get this COVID taken care of. So if you're interested, you can buy those tickets through us on that website, and there'll be at least 3 or 4 different door prizes. One is a Fender guitar, one is a big screen TV, one is going to be at least one of gift cards for $250 at our local restaurants. Donnie?
And I'm sure you'll all be happy to know that I won a big screen TV on it one year, so that's good
And you
stuff.
immediately donated to the American Legion.
Different TV. This was 2 different TVs.
Oh, well, you're so good.
The Corona Chamber of Commerce is proud to sponsor a wonderful regional event, the Women's Leadership Conference. This is our 9th year, I believe, of involvement in this program. It is a great lineup of guest speakers this year. We have a physicians panel that's always been very popular with our attendees, and we look forward to having another great event this year. Tickets are available now. It will be on Thursday, September 24th. And please plan on attending and making arrangements so you can be there and not miss this informative day of at the Women's Leadership Conference. Bobby?
And the last slide is going to be next week's talk. We know there's a lot of rumblings going on about what to do with your children and what's going on with the various school districts. Our local school district of Corona-Norco Unified School District, actually, they have a complete plan that they want to share with us. And so next week at this time at 10 o'clock, they will be our keynote portion of the talk. Please let everyone know if you have friends or you have some of your employees that need to plug into this, let us know, have them register on. You can just go to the bit.ly CCBB July 1 and you log on and you'll be able to get the code for you to be on the Zoom call. With that, I just want to say thank you again to everyone that participated today. I do want to, I don't know, Linda, if you can slide back to the slide that's got the free masks. I want to plug that one more time. Since the governor has instituted that everyone should be wearing masks, the county of Riverside has partnered with us, and we have these disposable masks. They're a one-time use mask. If you need those, you can register and get them from us. And I'm going over today to pick up more of them. And this is it right here. So it's a bit.ly face mask -free. This is all case sensitive, but if you do want to get masks, we would love to have you be able to come down here and pick them up. And again, this is through a partnership with County of Riverside. On behalf of the Corona Chamber and all of our businesses, we want to say thank you for plugging in today. Have a fabulous day. We are adjourned. Oh, Karen, did you need something? Okay.
I'm waving goodbye.
Okay. See you later, sweetheart.